Greetings and salutations, young true believers. So today I want to talk to you about the Closer to Truth video. Does philosophy help science? And in that video, Robert Kuhn interviews a number of working scientists and philosophers about the relationship between philosophy and science. One thing that should be noted right off the bat is that prior to the very early 19th century, the term science didn't even exist. Science is based on the Latin root scientia, which means knowledge. Uh, well, around the early 19th century, disciplines like philosophy and science began to be professionalized. That is to say, they moved into universities. Newton never held an academic position. Darwin didn't hold an academic position. They were, gentlemen of leisure, as it were. They had resources, and they funded their own research. But in the 19th century, uh, all these various academic disciplines became professionalized. They moved into universities exclusively, right? So that's where you begin to get this divorce of philosophy and science, right? As is noted in the video, prior to the 19th century, there was no such thing as a scientist, as a separate discipline, doing some kind of separate work, uh, different than that of other philosophers. What we call a scientist today was simply a natural philosopher. Newton was a natural philosopher. But it is true, as is noted in the video, right, that uh, a lot of scientists, Stephen Hawking is Exhibit A, right, or was Exhibit A. They feel that philosophy has nothing to contribute to scientific discourse, and it's a relic of a bygone era. We should just let philosophy wither and die, and that's that, right? And others, uh, Neil deGrasse Tyson, for example, is another example of a scientist with this attitude. And their main charge is that, well, look, philosophers ask these questions that don't really have much of a bearing on scientific practice. Now, scientific methodology is another matter, but they should just get out of the way because philosophical debates just go round and round and never end. Let the scientists do the work, the hard work, and you know, philosophy will die, right? But as is noted often in the video, right, and by several of the people that Kuhn talks to, science or philosophers do a much better job than do scientists of clarifying the concepts that scientists use, clarifying what is meant by a scientific law, revealing the assumptions and the sloppy reasoning that scientists use. Right, in this respect, uh, philosophy is invaluable to science. Right. Um, it is the case that most of the scientists who take philosophy seriously came from science themselves. My department chair at San Jose State, um, Janet Stemwettle, she had a PhD in chemistry. The day after she got her PhD in chemistry, she decided she wanted to go back and do a PhD in philosophy because the questions she was really interested in science weren't, strictly speaking, purely scientific questions. They were philosophical questions, and philosophy answered them better. Now, I want to address this critique. It's a critique that a lot of people make. Well, look, philosophy doesn't solve anything. Philosophical debates go round and round, and they never end, and that's just a scandal of philosophy. To make that critique is to misunderstand what philosophy is. We're asking questions in philosophy, uh, you know, regarding what the nature of consciousness, how you get mind from brain. And these are questions obviously that science can weigh in on. What is free will? What's the best possible life? What should I do? What is value? That science doesn't shed any light on. And because of the nature of these questions, they tend to be exceedingly difficult questions that don't admit of easy answers. So to say that, well, look, philosophers don't resolve anything, it's because we're asking the most difficult questions, right? Now, it may be the case that in centuries to come, we shed more light on this, but on these really difficult questions. But uh, there's an analogy I like to use, right? Philosophy is the leather strap that you sharpen up your mental razor on, right? if you want to be a good critical thinker, and that's, you want to be a good critically thinking lawyer, you want to be a good critically thinking scientist, a good critically thinking politician, you need to study some philosophy, right? Science without philosophy is just dangerous, right? Because it has no ethical bearing to it. And it's got a scientist without philosophy is a scientist who doesn't understand the implications of his or her work. That's the value of philosophy to science.